Yeah, so in regards to exclusivity and all that fun jazz, we ended up getting some details about Square Enix and their fiscal year 2024 quarter one earnings, which are a little bleak in some spots, right? So revenue, they ended up making $601.2 million, which puts them up 14.4%. Their operating income, however, is in a negative 78.5%. Oof. The
Damn.
net income works out to be a 44.2 million or negative 65.7%. For digital entertainment sales, they were up by 16% year on year. Um, Operating income down overall as an 80.6 year over year for the Final Fantasy Pixel remaster, etc. Like it's a rough moment for them. We saw it a lot on Twitter over the last week or two, didn't we? Oh, yeah. So they ended up shipping 7.54 million games in quarter one, up from 4.8 in fiscal year 23, quarter one, same time. And on their HD sales and stuff, they were up 140%. Mobile games were down 18%, and MMO sales were also down 22%. It's a man. The new mobile titles couldn't offset the weak performance of the existing titles, is what we basically found from all this information. Uh, it's been it's been a very interesting one. Obviously, we talk off the scenes quite a bit, and I threw something up online on I think it was what Friday night, Thursday or Friday night. I threw something up about the Final Fantasy sales, and just got absolutely just attacked by a very selective base about how this doesn't matter. This isn't this is a nothing burger type of scenario and stuff. It's rough to watch because like the thing is I think for a long time we've continued to hear these different companies say, numbers are down, but then we find out, oh, but it's exclusive to a ecosystem. So that brings in the whole idea of like, why not make this a multi-platform title, right? And that brings me right to Sour. I guess my question for you, right, is are exclusives worth it? Given the information that we know, do they really sell? Obviously, we ended up seeing the details in regards to the low sales of Final Fantasy compared to the console sales. Upwards of what 40 million is what they list as they're sold through.
Hmm.
So that's a very small percentage, and obviously with the budget they're given, I had a lot of people saying like, yeah, 210 million or whatever it was. Like that's not a bad take for the first week of sales or whatever, however long the length was for it. However, that's not factoring in the cost for the physical copies, the cost for the licensing, the cost for releasing it on that specific platform's ecosystem, etc. Like that number dwindles more and more. And it sounded like the budget, if I remember correctly when we were talking about this, it sat right around about 300 mil for Final Fantasy 16, which that puts them in the red after their initial sales, and then they have to try and recoup that. Now, people don't release games with the intention of being in the red for like a long period of time, and usually the first couple weeks of sales are key because after those first couple weeks of sales, with the exception of discounts and stuff like that, promotions, those sales drop off pretty
Yes.
substantially, right? So like I said before, I went on a bit of a tangent. Are exclusives worth it? Does it seem like they really sell? I feel like this is a pretty good example of what we found.
You know
Hmm.
what's funny?
I got a
I
lot
don't
of
know if
things to
you've
say
seen
about
the.
this.
I,
But go first,
I
man.
don't know if you've seen the graphics. But there's a graph that shows Square financial where it's like consistent and then it just drops for
Yeah.
for the quarter, and
Yep.
then I don't know if you saw most recently. Bandai Namco, they released their graph, and theirs is the complete opposite, which goes,
I
consistent
did
like
see
that,
that.
but it dips up,
Mhm.
which is hilarious because like you have Square, which they have been removing games from certain platforms, and then Bandai Namco is basically putting them everywhere. So it's like the complete opposite. And
Mm.
I think also something that doesn't help Square is that they're not being consistent. Like they're like all over the place. They don't know what their plan is. Like one week they say they're going to go all in blockchain, then the next week they say they're not. Then they say they're gonna go this route, the other route, and then you see, for example, games like Octopus Traveler that released in
It's
Switch
Octopath,
exclusively.
not
Octopath.
Octopus. Oh
Yeah,
dear
yeah,
lord.
Octopath. Sorry, sorry.
Dear
Octopus
Octopath,
Traveler.
Octopus.
Oh,
That's the.
folks in the chat. I want to see a Photoshop. I, I call on your
Hey, that's the upgraded
amazing
version.
abilities.
Okay,
I
version,
call
man.
I call on your guys' amazing Photoshop abilities. I want to see
Octopus
an
Traveler.
Octopus Traveler
Yeah.
ASAP.
That's the
Octopus
upgraded
Traveler.
version. It costs $150. Anyway,
What?
anyway, Octopath Traveler
Okay.
released on Switch, right, exclusive. Then later it was ported to Xbox, and it didn't release to PlayStation. But then you have Octopath Traveler 2, which released on Switch and on PlayStation, but didn't release on Xbox, which makes no sense. Then you have Final Fantasy 7, which is exclusive to PlayStation, and then Crisis Core, which is like the
Mm.
prequel, that releases everywhere. It makes no sense at all. So basically, what you're doing is you're locking, uh, you're locking your game to one platform, so you can only make money from that specific platform. And sure, there are some fans that if they are fan of a franchise, they will get it on that specific platform. Is that the only way they can play it? But let's be honest, the majority of people, especially now with how things are after the pandemic, the economy is not the same as in the past. So
Mhm.
people are more selective as how much they need to spend. And I understand there's studios, like if you're an indie developer, sometimes you have to make the sacrifice because you don't have the funds to release on all three platforms. And what most of these indie developers do is they release it first on one platform because they want to release a good game, you know, with good quality and good performance. And then with the money they make, they continue to port it to other platform, and then they continue to make money. But Square is not an indie developer. Like they should be able to release it in other platforms. So what they're doing is they're just making deals in order to, I guess, to
To
make their
survive.
game, and then after that, they're just locking themselves up with these deals because then they can't release it to other platform and make more money. So I think it's ridiculous. I think they're starting to see that hopefully it's not late for them, but they're starting to see that that approach is not working as well as they thought it will and it would. And then you have companies like Bandai Namco, like Capcom, that they have been releasing their games on multiple platforms, and it is working for them.